DMs, what are some of the craziest things your PCs have said? Party of 4, Druid is about to be executed. Ranger is looking at it all from a rooftop, Warlord and Fighter are there in the midst of the crowd. Any last words? Asks the executioner. Yeah. Says the Druid, who then proceed to yell at the top of his lungs, in real life, 2 gold coins for each citizen that throws whatever they're holding at the guards. Chaos ensues, Druid conjures level 2 utility power of smoke, Ranger sees opportunity, frees the Druid while they have the cover of the smoke, Ranger sneaks off, Druid turns into an eagle and flies off. Oh, one last thing, I poop down, aiming at the executioner's head. Natural 20. One of my PCs, our barbarian, tried to break through a standard wooden door. Rolled an 8 with modifier. I tell him, well, you didn't break it, but you did make a small hole in the door. PC, can I put my dick in it? Me, sure. PC, does anything happen? Me, dire rats happen. One of my players was a druid, he walked into a pasture and started making diplomacy checks with a herd of cows and eventually raised an army. Stampeding cows have a hell of a strength check. The gate to the Lord's manor never stood a chance. What did he promise the cows? Revenge. He went on a long speech about their oppression and subservience. I think he was quoting Animal Farm, but it didn't really matter. Our 6 INT fighter could have stampeded them just the same by shouting like a hooligan. They were really set on the idea of using those cows. The druid in our last session, while at a party in a fancy in celebrating their victory. I transform into a bear and start body popping. He rolled a very low performance check, resulting in an extremely confused and somewhat frightened crowd. Fortunately, the super charismatic warlock recovered it by starting to dance with the bear, while the ranger started singing the bear and the maiden fair. An evil party I run sessions for has a cleric who comes up with gold nearly every session. Highlights include: 1. Okay guys, I'll cast Fly on the Horse, you set up the ramp on the edge of the city walls. 2. I cast Unseen Servant, and instructed to vigorously masturbate the old woman. Does she look pleased? 3. I turn myself into a little girl and attempt to seduce the hobo. The sad thing is, he genuinely thought these were all good ideas at the time. PCs are being chased through the basement of a castle by a group of hostile guards. They decide to try to lose them by hiding in a closet. The guards see them and begin trying to get in. PC calls out bluff check through the door, no one is in here. Natural 20. Low insight guards leave. The party is ambushed and trapped. Most are unconscious or very hurt. Enemies are numerous, including a wizard who has been demanding the surrender of the party for several rounds and seems like he's getting angrier by the second. It is the fighter's turn. I laugh maniacally as I set this guy on fire. Ha ha ha. Sets non-threatening, weaponless, prone in a puddle of grease guy on fire when he's already bloody and obviously very hurt. With a stupid grin on his face, I turn around and finally surrender to the wizard behind me. Wizard kills him. The fuck? I surrendered as he asked me. What do you mean aggravating circumstances? Edit, formatting. I roll to rave. Rolls a 1, I critically fail to rave. I bet that still looks a lot like critically succeeding to rave. Imagine the whitest person you know attempting to dance to the most thug/R&B music you know. Now imagine that person as a bard dressed in a ridiculously multicolored cloak. Add in that the party was fighting a small group of elite drow warriors. Now you have an idea of what it looked like. TLDR, he failed so hard he was dancing horribly in the fashion of an entirely different genre. Me as DM, okay, so describe what you're doing to intimidate this man. Werewolf PC, I pull out my giant wolf cock and hit him with it. Rolls 19. Me, no words? I had a PC, he was a Goliath, who had a penchant with cutting the cocks off monsters he got the killing blow on and wearing them as a chain of trophies on his neck, kind of like some would do with ears. It eventually became the running joke of the group, and I finally caved in and gave him a magical cock to add to the necklace that give him increased AC. Edit, one of his reasons was how intimidating would it be to fight a guy with cocks on his necklace, knowing yours could end up there. First game of a bunch of new players. Everyone prepped their sheet and are excited to begin a new adventure, as they mostly never played D&D. I didn't want to make them all being conveniently being in an in and bam quest, so they all started somewhere, heading to the big town for each their own reasons. The ranger, walking down a road toward the city, was chosen to be the first to know that something was wrong in the neighborhood, and met a dying man on the side of the road, his cart on the side and pretty messed up. He talks to the man and learn what he should. I was expecting this to be over, but he wanted to play the ranger part to the top. Ranger, since there's a cart, there should be a horse close. Me, yeah, ha, the horse is next to the cart, dying too. Ranger, poor thing, well I'll kill it so it won't be in pain any longer. I look around to see if there's any rock on the ground. Me, ha, okay, well you find a big enough rock, big as your fist. Ranger, I take the rock and hit the horse on the head until it dies, so it won't feel pain anymore. Me, why it? You got two swords, but you want to finish the horse by hitting it repeatedly with a rock. What's your alignment again? Without telling the entire story, I had a friend join our long-running game as a bard. Part of his introduction involved the group saving him from some bounty hunters. I wanted him to have his own input into his backstory, so I told him they could be after him for any reason. At this point, let me reiterate that this was a bard with very very high charisma. Without me knowing what his reason was, after they saved him, one of the other PCs naturally asked him, in character, why they were after him. His reason? He'd raped the local magistrate's daughter. Pretty much the entire group's jaws dropped. He quickly recanted, and said he meant to say that he consensually deflowered her, but no one could get past the fact that he said, initially, that as a bard who could bed anyone he pleased he raped someone. I chalked it up the nerves of his first time having to RP in the group. But man. This is from when I was a player, and my DM made a ridiculous ruling just to piss me off. The percentile dice were in my favor, but he still went with it. The little boy runs off into the fog screaming for help. I shout for him to stop. It's dangerous out there. Come back. He keeps running, screaming about monsters. I, half ogre barbarian with a heart of gold, throw my great axe over the boy so it will land in front of him and give him pause as I shout. I said, stop. Rolls a 19. You cut the boy in half. But I rolled a 19. And I'm attacking a 5-foot square of dirt with AC 5. It's foggy. I'm not the DM, but our group has some gems. They include: can I do a 5-foot flop and hit him? Fighter with his legs blown off, armed with nothing but a dagger. He kill stole. Sid, Dragon Rider, you go through dragons like Popeye goes through spinach. On the disintegration of the Dragon Rider's dragon, remember your ABCs. Appraise. Barter. Sell. With a C. That's right, sell. Greedy gold-loving paladin on the principles of his religion. There's always more, these are just ones that stand out right now. I want a normal ship. For normal adventures. On a normal ocean. The party was apparently displeased with having acquired a magic living ship, and didn't want to mess with that crazy magic stuff. To me that was crazy. It was like if Link didn't try and save his sister because the King of Red Lions talked back too much for being a ship. I give member a sentient headband item. Player says I put it on my butt. What happens? Me, you feel vibrations on your butt. Him, oh? He gets shackles that will summon scimitars +1 in his hands. I put them on my ankles. Me, nothing happens. Him, I put it on my dick. Me, you now have a backwards scimitar vagina. The bad news is, your pirating days are over. The good news is, you've been promoted to Island King. And then they marooned the enemy captain on a deserted island. And 6 months later in the campaign the Island King returns. He found a magical item of great power that turned him into a lich. He sacrificed his own life to the dark purpose of exacting his terrible revenge, and raised a horde of undead warriors to hunt the party down. Shortly after knocking out a kobold. Sword mage, okay, so I start sawing off the kobold's foot. Wizard, wait, why? SM, because he hasn't answered my questions. Wiz, you haven't asked him any questions yet. SW, fine, where are your leaders? DM, he is still unconscious. SW, see? Okay, so I start cutting off his foot. Wiz, so help me God, I will turn you into a frog if you don't stop that. I have 2, 1. I'd like to throw my bloody rabbit's foot in the kobold's face to intimidate. Rolls 20, 2. He's unconscious, right? I'd like to attempt a coup de grace with my enormous dragon cock. Rolls 20. My group tends to do this kind shit to me. We were talking about the sorcerer's lack of a familiar. He turns to the guy playing a halfling in an otherwise all-human party and says, I consider you my familiar. That led to about a half-hour discussion and rule fight about whether or not he could actually make a PC his familiar. I punch a hole in the keg and send the donkey at the mercenaries. Then I'll light the alcohol. Mule bomb. I challenge the boss to single, unarmed combat. When the boss then grabs his weapon and kills the character. He cheated. I throw a javelin. You can't, you're carrying the gnome. I throw the gnome? Can I just slice the system to gain access the doors? Sure, roll. Okay, you're in. Awesome, I open all the loading bay doors and jettison every other group into space. One of them was a group of Girl Scouts. Criminal Girl Scouts. Fetus nunchucks.
Hey adventurers and fellow Redditors, are you tired of hearing the same old battle music during your D&D sessions, or just looking for the perfect soundtrack for your next epic quest? Well, let me introduce you to Amazon Music Unlimited. With Amazon Music Unlimited, you get access to over 100 million songs, ad-free. That means whether you need an intense combat playlist, relaxing tunes for a tavern scene, or just something to vibe to while scrolling Reddit, we've got you covered. And it's not just about music, there are thousands of podcasts too. So if you need a break between campaigns, you can catch up on your favorite shows. Plus, there's the best part. If you sign up today, you can try it free for 30 days. No commitment, no hassle, just endless music and podcasts tailored to your taste. So whether you're crafting your next D&D campaign, painting minis, or just chilling with your party, make your soundtrack legendary with Amazon Music Unlimited. Hit the link below and start your free trial now, because every adventure needs a killer soundtrack.
There's a story there that needs to be told. I played with a guy that was playing a necro wizard or sorcerer. We had the all 3.5 unlocked, including that damn creepy seed thing. Unfortunately the player was a creepy asshole and proceeded to put these mind-controlling seeds in all of his team and absolutely destroy the campine. He went completely chaotic evil in a non-evil campaign. The DM should have taken control back, but they were buds. Unfortunately for him, we played at my place, and since his actions were creeping out my later-to-be wife, fetus, nunchucks and more, I had to ban him from my home. And yes, I tried to get him to stop and the DM to step in, neither action took effect, so instead I had to ban the player my own way. It was a distinctly unpleasant situation, but not my worst awkward D&D encounter. I blow up the castle. Did they? They did. The artificer and factotum worked together to rig a controlled demolition of the castle using homemade cabbage bombs that had been infused with modified fireballs, while the barbarian and rogue evacuated the servants. The devils that had taken over the castle never saw it coming. I'm gonna cut off its hand. Not crazy at first, trophies and all that, but the crazy bit is that she's trying to make some sort of goblin-based beer. Each time we kill a goblin, she takes the hand and adds it to her bag. When she gets to a village/town, she spends a few hours brewing stuff. The goblin hands are gone after. The other players are drinking but have yet to realize. I had a great DM line once. I was screwing around with a one-off and drunkenly making everything up on the fly for a pair of drunk female players. Player 1, am I hot? Me, roll yeah, actually. You're pretty damn attractive. Player 2, am I hot? Me, roll, you have a great personality. Player 1, do I have a boyfriend? Me, yeah, sure. Player 1, is he hot? Me, roll, he has a great personality. Edit, shit, I'm an idiot. This is the D&D subreddit. I will now commit seppuku with a frisbee. I'll leave my story up here, just the same. I ran a Serenity game for a small group of friends. Did my own storyline, NPCs, etc. My PCs got mixed up with a little sociopath who killed a family, robbed them blind, then convinced the PCs that it was his family and someone else killed and robbed them, and they had to go steal a herd of horses back. Eventually the whole thing comes unraveled and the PCs are now wanted by the local government. They decide to try and get off-world, and go to the only people they've really interacted with for help. Now, these were people that they traveled with on a transport vessel. They paid these people for transport since they had no ship of their own, and that was pretty much the end of their relationship. So, as they're fleeing the local law enforcement agents, they arrive at the newly landed colony that they had traveled with. They go to speak to the group leader to see if they have any way to get off the planet. The party's ship mechanic, please note previous comment that the group had no ship, immediately starts talking at this guy. We messed up really bad. We need to get off the planet. You're not going to call the cops, are you? That was the first thing out of his mouth. At this point the rest of the PCs state that they're heading out the door. The colony leader excuses himself for a minute while the mechanic is desperately trying to plead his case and not be reported, and the rest of his party is debating on taking off without him or not. That whole campaign was one fuck-up after the next, and as the DM it was absolutely hilarious. Just recently I had my player scream in character for 30 minutes at a god. I was laughing the entire time trying to antagonize him further. The backstory is that he is an Aasimar paladin of Odin, and all of Odin's clerics and paladins have been losing their connection to their god. The cause of this has revealed himself to be Loki. Loki took the life gem, a world stone that creation is founded on, and put Odin into his Odin sleep early. Odin sleep being a period where he rests every few hundred years and evil forces attempt to retake Asgard. Loki then siphoned the superior powers of his foster father in order to set other plans in motion. He decided to antagonize the mortals of Odin's chief-worshipping city to satisfy his trickster nature. At this point things have gotten bad in the land, and the king was giving a speech to his people in the Senate about going to war. Loki goes in and begins interrupting the king's speech. The paladin interrupts Loki, and begins swearing that Odin's power is still there and that he is worthless and can't touch him. Loki keeps taunting him, and the paladin begins screaming at Loki. He is telling him things like Balder will be avenged, and that he will die before Ragnarok, things in Norse mythology. Loki gets pissed that a mortal is talking down to him, so he reaches to grab the paladin. The paladin grabs his hand and throws his arm away from him, screaming that his power is nothing compared to Odin. Loki disappears and tells him to have fun with an army on his doorstep. At this point, the entire room is speechless because they realize that the hand of the king just told a god to go fuck himself. The reason he is able to even touch Loki is because Odin's spirit took mortal form and appeared to the player as a beggar with an eye patch to mark him as his champion, thus being the only one not affected by the loss of power. Now he has to deal with an army of the dead at his city gates, which is the army Loki was referring to when he left. Edit, for clarity, hope that's better. You want to grab what? You heard me. Level 1 sorcerer grabs the scrotum of an ogre, the boss of our long as hell encounter, and uses shocking grasp. It was treated as a creep so to speak, so it wiped out whatever remaining HP that poor bastard had. The original quote was I run up to the ogre and grab his nuts. Party is on a fun dungeon crawl. We come up to a locked door at the end of a 10-wide hallway. We decide we should listen at the door. DM, who listens? Party, we all do. DM, you don't hear anything. Barbarian, I open the door. DM, the entire party falls into the 10'X10 pit trap. Another time, the newbie wizard, myself and a ranger are all about to attack a keep, when the wizard decides to cast Fog of Fear. Unfortunately, she didn't check the area of effect, and failed to notice that it emanated in a cloud all around her. Oh, by the way, this may affect you? Both of us subsequently failed our savings throws, and I ran screaming in terror towards the keep. The guards filled me with arrows, to my great dismay. Player, I tie the tiger, druid's animal companion, to my arm. I will be punching tiger, hidden dragon. Later me, as NPC, I am a white dragon in disguise, you see. Player, I need you to hide in this tiger. Me, some of the villagers will be reluctant to leave. Player, I'll just have to introduce them to some smite evil. Me, the villagers aren't necessarily evil. Player, disagreeing with us isn't evil. Me, you see what looks like a scouting party. Player, excuse me. Are you with the tyrant, or the despot? Player, tigers don't deal lethal damage, they deal tiger damage. There's no coming back from tiger damage. Wasn't DM, but our first Pathfinder game, we met up in an adventurer's tavern. We were all level 1, and our wizard came out with the phrase I cast charm person on the tavern owner. A huge collective face palm and well I'm rolling a backup character now. DM did a great job of handling it all I see, too. As well as scaring everyone by picking up a huge handful of D20s and saying that is everyone's perception check. When my group approached Castle Ravenloft and were weary about fighting the baddies inside, let's just burn this castle to the ground. Later in the campaign, when confronted by a gang of travelers in a bar, our cleric of Pella told them to get out, or the rivers will run red with your blood and the streets will be littered with your corpses. Not D&D and, for once, I wasn't DMing, but we were playing 13th Age and I was a dwarf-forged bard with 100% of my relationship points toward the 3. Since we were experimenting with this new not D&D system, the DM encouraged us to push the envelope as far as we could, creatively. Here's some of my bard's highlights. I kick the table toward the guys at the door, then pick up a chair and start beating the guy who engaged me with it. He's grappling me. I try to rip one of his arms off. Succeeds strength check. Next turn comes around, I start beating him with his own arm. I kick the dead wolf toward the archers to try and throw off their aim. We were trekking into the woods with torches for light, right? What season is it? Ah. Fall, why? I try to start a forest fire to drive the cultists out. The half-orc bard with a flair for pyrotechnics gets the award for this one. Okay. I can get the door open, but I'm going to need a keg of blasting powder, 20 rubber bands, a hacksaw, 3 tankards full of warm butter, and an elf that's been basted in barbecue sauce. We never found out what he was planning, because the elf wizard immediately followed his statement up with, I cast knock on the door. Seriously, I can see how the first 3 might be useful. But what the butter and the elf for? The dwarf rogue in our good campaign found himself in a fucking shady part of town. As sketchy NPCs start harassing him with taunts as he goes down the street, he turns into an alleyway and asks to for a disguise roll. I need an evil disguise, so I'll go as an illithid. He made a decent roll, but his disguise kit ran out of materials. He melts candles down and puts wax over his beard braids and shaves his head. He tried doing it again when the party had to return to finish a quest, but he failed horribly on the roll, and just put his hand up to his face with his fingers pointing downwards off of his chin, like tendrils. It did not end well for the party. So in a game a buddy of mine was running, we were tasked with clearing out an encampment of ogres and bugbears. We get to the encampment, and it's in a little valley. We are standing in the tree line surrounding the valley, making sure that we are reasonably well concealed, and our ranger decides to loose an arrow at one of the guards who happened to be an ogre. The shot connects solidly, and the ogre shouts, "Hey, we're under attack from up there," while pointing in our general direction. My character responds with a natural 20 bluff check. No, we're not. The ogre gets a natural 1. He simply shrugs his shoulders, yells out okay, and turns around. Said while the party is sneaking around in the Temple of Elemental Evil, guys, something is wrong here. Shouldn't there be monsters around here somewhere? Twilight 2000 campaign, 2 players are pinned down on a roof. The GM rolls to see if either of them notices the grenade that just got lobbed up, and with the commotion, only one sees it. Dude? Grenade? Ha! No, I don't have any grenades. Party pursuing BBG, giving his description to some folk asking if he'd passed that way. What's he look like? Oh, he's about elf height. Elves, of course, vary in size depending on which universe you're in, and this was a Rifts game with tons of crossovers. Warhammer 40k, Black Crusade, my first time going, and it's session 14. The party consists of a psycho-human, Night Lord Space Marine, apostate human, and a forsaken Space Marine. The party was fighting a possessed corpse of a saint with psychic powers in a dark, dank crypt in a hive city. Within several turns the party had eliminated possessed minions consisting of animated pieces of armor. There was just the mini-boss left at turn 4, almost dead after the Night Lord's explosives. The mini-boss then pushed his powers to try to escape the party. He then casted a fear and pinning spell, don't know exact name. Everybody in the party fails, and they all have to run and find cover. However, the possessed demon automatically has to roll for bad stuff. Oh Psyker, this couldn't be that bad. He will make some mirror break. Oak Night Lord, yeah, or statues bleed out of their eyes. In secret I rolled for the bad stuff, and he rolled a 100 on psychic phenomena, and then a 99 on perils of the warp. Players at this point are not aware of what is happening, none of them are able to look, but they hear some growling and screaming. Oak Forsaken, or a small demon replaced the big bad super undead. Since the mini-boss didn't keep shooting or bombarding PCs, they auto-pass the pinning tests, and they gaze in the direction of the mini-boss. Only to see a 50-foot-tall greater demon called a Keeper of Secrets standing there. A gigantic great sword in one hand, a corrupted claw for another, and extremely pissed off he was transported to the normal plane of existence without her slaves. Q party wipe by accident skeptical. Oak equals out of character. One player, a druid I believe, but it's too far back to remember and honestly bears no difference to the story, went off alone into a town the party was in with the stated goal of stealing babies. It's really best if I leave it at that. She rolled to locate said babies to steal, did well, and located herself the most choice of babies, an infant still in the process of being born. A woman alone in her home that had gone into labor. I wish I could say this story had a happy ending for the mother and child, but sadly I can't. This particular player was about as murder hobo as murder hobos get, with half of the tact and subtlety. The guards overheard the ruckus of her trying to help deliver the baby, she didn't roll well, and broke down the door to find the druid covered in blood, stood over the now dead woman and holding her newborn child. She rolled diplomacy. She got a 4. The druid. Not a DM, but a great old one warlock who worships Cthulhu says I'm going to go for a walk. And laughs manically while he walks off. Funny thing, no one questioned where he was going or what he was doing. When I asked why, they said in unison we really don't want to know. Once I asked my players if they were sure. Their answer: yes.
Hey there, fantasy fans. If you're looking for an epic listen, you have to check out Rosamund Pike's narration of the Wheel of Time audiobook. Rosamund Pike brings so much life to Robert Jordan's world, her performance adds an extra layer of depth to the characters, making the story even more immersive. Whether it's her portrayal of the fearless Aes Sedai or the intense magical battles, she nails it. It's like experiencing the Wheel of Time in a whole new way. And here's the best part. You can get it for free with Audible's 30-day trial of Audible Plus. You'll get access to this incredible audiobook and more, completely free for a month. So if you're ready to dive into this massive fantasy world, this is the perfect way to start. Don't miss out. Check the link below and start your journey today. 100% free for qualifying people. Completely free. Click the link.